Welcome back to another edition of James Releases a brand new coffee for his coffee roasting company called The Blending Room, based in Hull, East Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. For those people who do follow along, I hope you enjoy this edition. For those people who don't know what I do, on a weekly basis, I release a new coffee specifically for our coffee subscribers, but broadly released to those who purchase from us through the roastery at Beverley Market, which is a market stall I do on a weekly basis, and our broader e-commerce customers. In these videos, I will talk through the coffee, where I bought it from, how I roast it. I'll do a little bit of a tasting based on a batch filter brew, and I'll give some suggestions about how I think you could brew this at home. Many of my coffees are purchased through a UK importer called Falcon Speciality, and specifically Matt Sealby, the trader that I use there to purchase all of the coffees. This is no exception. It comes from Falcon Speciality. It is a coffee from Brazil, which are the new kids on the block in the UK at this point in time. It is a mixed cultivar, naturally processed, and should be delicious. I have linked Falcon's website in the description below should you want to go over there to understand a little bit more about that company, their buying ethics, and more broadly the coffees that they have on their portfolio. So with the intro done, let's dig into the roast profiles. On the screen now you'll see the overall shape of the profile. What is a profile? The profile is a graph showing heat applied to the coffee beans over time. It is a recipe, and it's what us roasters use to guide us through subsequent roasts, or in live terms using this software system, Cropster, I will be mapping or plotting the graph as I go along. A graph shape will give us an indication as to whether we think heat has been applied successfully. That's important. Heat application, cooking, is what we do to coffee to create coffee beans. It starts as a little raw seed, and I have to create a brown, soluble coffee bean. And these graphs on the screen, that's exactly how us roasters get to that point. By looking at this particular profile or graph, you will see an underlying mechanism or methodology that I like to apply to pretty much all of my roasts, and that is fundamentally an ever declining rate of rise curve. Now, the rate of rise curve is this thing here. It is a declining slope, and it is an inverse reflection of the heat being applied to the coffee beans through time, as you can see with this cursor move now. It shows that towards the end of the roast, this section here, there is still heat increasing, but the rate of that increase is much shallower than earlier points within the roasting cycle. You can see that this slope declines through time, and that is a method that I like to use and have been using for probably 10 years. Scott Rayo was a gentleman who brought this understanding through to the broader scope and masses of roasters in the world. But if I reviewed many of my roast profiles, I was kind of doing this before that became common knowledge. It's one of those things, it's a result of sensitive heat application. This is how I like to drive. I'll talk about that another day. So let's review some of the data points. The total roast time was 9 minutes and 34 seconds. The development time, so that is the duration of time that we mark post first crack. First crack is a very significant event within the roast cycle, and we call every bit of time after that the development time or the development phase. In this case, it was 1 minute and 26 seconds. The ratio of that development phase versus the whole length of the roast profile was 15%. Percentage terms are used to discuss the development time when talking between roasters. I, however, prefer time post first crack. I find that a better indication of the expectation of flavor qualities based on that period of time rather than the ratio. The starting temperature was 212.5 degrees, and importantly, the end temperature was 213.8. I say importantly because throughout the roast or throughout multiple batches, we're looking for definitive markers to signify the end of something or the beginning of something. And end temperature is a target that I would choose during a roast cycle to finish on. The result of which is roast color. This roast was 98.6 on the Agtron Gourmet scale, which is extremely light. Going back to the curves, you can see that there's an ever declining rate of rise curve, and the shape of the curve is a nice arcing slope. Now, I may choose to apply a little bit more heat in this phase of the roast in subsequent batches, so that there isn't that drop that you can see there on the screen. I think that if I apply a touch more energy, pull up that bit of rate of rise there, I may get a bit more solubility and a bit more development within the bean so that I can achieve an extremely light roast color, but have great solubility. Solubility means that you, the brewer, can access the flavor gamut more easily. For those of you who are interested, I once again have used the pyramid heat approach. This is an emulation of drum roasting. I enjoy the texture and the mouthfeel that you get from drum roasters. It's just really delightful. But inside of the Loring, you get then all the benefit of the cleanliness of development of a predominantly convection air roaster. Okay, I think I've covered everything there with the roast profile. Let's taste. As I do every week, I prepare a batch filter brew. I'll do a batch filter brew because it's my preferred method of brewing within the roastery, and that gives me a reference point, an olfactory reference point week after week, and that's very important. I could, and have been requested, to do some live brewing. Now, I'm pretty time poor. It's hard enough producing these videos, let alone also doing live brewing. And that might also give across slightly the wrong message when it comes to this particular presentation. It's a presentation based on how the coffee is produced more than maybe how you can brew this live, because there's just so many different methods of brewing out there. So back to the actual assessment of flavor first, let's use our nose. Our nose is so important in our overall olfactory assessment of any food product. So I'm going to dig it in now. And I can smell creamy milk chocolate on the cup. There's not much fruit in there, which is surprising because I'm expecting a little bit of fruit in the cup, but damn, there is a lot of milk chocolate. Let's see if that's in the cup in flavor. Which it is on the finish, but before we talk about the finish, let's talk about the first part of the assessment, acidity. This is very soft. There's not much acidity in this at all. There's a touch, and of course there will be, from an 83.5 point coffee from Brazil. That is a good quality coffee from this particular region, and an expectation would be there would be a smidge of fruit in there. There wouldn't be hyper amounts like from 85, 86 and above, but you do want some character in there. So the acidity here is a little bit like soft orange. There's a touch of raspberry and maybe a little bit of, we'll call it broadly mixed red berries. Character-wise, there's a touch more of that creaminess, and in comes a bit of nut as well, like a hazelnut or macadamia nut, plus also some of those orangey characteristics coming through as well. Then on the finish, lots of lovely milk chocolate. This is creamy milk chocolate. Think somewhere between 30 and 35% cocoa mass, so nice and soft. And of course, some of those berry characteristics are floating around on the side of my mouth as well. This is really delightful. So pulling all those flavor characters and aroma profile together, how do I think I should brew this at home? Well, cafetiere. That's going to be my biggest suggestion. Full immersion brewing, bring out that texture, that milk, creamy milk chocolate base, interlaced with that soft red berries and orange, I think would be superb. Beyond that, batch filter brew. It's wonderful. It's one of those coffees that I can imagine anybody brewing at any point during the day and just having an easy, without having to think about it, delicious coffee. This isn't going to challenge you. This isn't going to make you go, yes, this is the best coffee I've ever had. But this is what I would have as my everyday driver, my cup of joe, that type of thing. It's these coffees that form the base of all of our brewing at home or professionally. Yes, it's great drinking those top lots, but these types of coffees, these are the drivers of our days, certainly for people like me anyway. If you've got a hybridized brewer such as a clever dripper, I think you're going to marry both of those wonderful worlds of texture and sweetness and the top notes that this brings. So dust those off if you have one. If you're a home espresso brewer, I think this is going to work as well. Irrespective of that very or extremely light roast coloration, you're going to get the terroir out of it, but because the acidity is fairly low and controlled, you will get some degree of enjoyment out of it. This would marry well with milk. Go Gold Up in Jersey, I've said that 1,000 times. So yeah, I do think those people who enjoy espresso at home would have a good time with this. And on that bombshell, that was Mutuca, a mixed cultivar, natural processed coffee from Brazil that tastes of soft oranges and mixed red berries and a lovely creamed milk chocolate on the finish. I hope this video has been useful. I hope it's given you an insight into how I've roasted the coffee and some of the thinking that I would go through as a roaster whilst producing this product for you. If you want to taste this, it is live on our website now. I am going to be at Beverley Market between 8 AM and 4 PM on a Saturday and every Saturday with this coffee until it runs out. Those of you who are coffee subscribers should have that in the post, notwithstanding the fact that it's the Easter bank holiday with us here in the UK, so it might be a touch delayed. Apologies for that. We are also open between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday at the Roastery, where you can come and have a look at the equipment and talk to us about stuff related to coffee or anything if you wish. With that all said and done, you have a great week ahead. Enjoy the coffee if you pick up a bag. Cheers.